one F of the equation of the NBA Finals is set as the Boston Celtics have swept the Indiana Pacers. And as I have said here constantly over the last week, after what happened in game one when Indiana could not inbound the ball, Jaylen Brown, it's the big shot to send the game to overtime. I knew the Indiana Pacers would come out and fight. I knew game two they would lay a little bit of an egg, but I know that that team in Indiana would not give up. I know how skilled they were offensively, even without Tyrese Halliburton. Andrew Nimard, TJ McConnell, Neat Smith really stepped up there and gave them some offensive production. But at the end of the day, in every game in this series, specifically games one, game three, and game four, and even a little bit in game two, when it was somewhat close in the fourth quarter, the Indiana Pacers could not seal the deal. And I think you have to give a little bit of a credit there to not only Jason Tatum, not only to Jaylen Brown, who I think have now obviously both become 1A and 1B, maybe more nationally to the media, because as we mentioned, Jaylen Brown is sort of in the category of Jamal Murray for the Denver Nuggets, where, I've said Jamal Murray may be the best player in the NBA to have never made an All-Star team. And while Jaylen Brown has made All-Star teams, he certainly does not get the recognition that Jason Tatum does. And the analytics, they love Jason Tatum. You know me, I'm not the biggest Jason Tatum fan. I always feel like in the big spots and in the big games, Jaylen Brown outplays his running mate. But I have thought that throughout these playoffs, outside of a few games here or there where, it was Brown one night or Tatum one night in the first or second round, I really thought in all four of these conference finals games, Tatum and Brown really complemented each other. And I do think what separates this Boston team from other Boston teams in the past is two additions. It is Drew Holiday, who is absolutely an offensive upgrade over Marcus Smart. And while Marcus Smart, as we talked about on the Tuesday edition of Championship Rings, the other show I do in collaboration where I debate my good partner Josh Unger on all things sports. As we talked about, while Marcus Smart was the defensive player of the year the Boston Celtics went to the NBA Finals and obviously blew, if you want to call it that. I don't think they did, but some people say, blew that 2-1 series lead against the Warriors. Marcus Smart was not making key plays at the end of games and key steals the way that Drew Holiday is doing. And then Derek White, and you can run, Peyton Pritchard in this as well, but Derek White and Al Horford to a certain degree, but Derek White's the one to me that has really stood out, that is making key shots, whether it's a free, a basket, or rebound. Him and Drew Holiday alongside Tatum and Brown, that again have now come together in unison, are just making big plays at the end of games. And what's scary to me is Boston is doing this without, maybe their fourth best player in Kristaps Porzingis, who we know when healthy what he adds to that Boston Celtics team. So you take a look at the other side of the ledger, and obviously Dallas, they could not get it almost. I almost said last night as I'm recording here on a Wednesday, they could not get it home Tuesday night against the Minnesota Timberwolves, even though Luka Doncic made that incredible shot from half court, got the and one, could not convert the free throw. And even though Dallas was the way more aggressive team, obviously Carl the Towns ended up fouling out. Rudy Gobert had 5 fouls, etc. Anthony Edwards just with a mid-range jumper to put Minnesota 5, 101 to 100, which was essentially the game at that point, just said no. And Anthony Edwards has struggled all series, especially in the fourth quarter. And for a 22-year-old man, I don't think the tired excuse is there. I just don't think Anthony Edwards is ready for the moment. Well, the one thing I will say about Ant is he did not want to get swept. He did not want to go home. And, there was some speculation out there that the referees, even in Dallas, would be in Minnesota's favor because the NBA does not want two sweeps to occur. And while I concurred with that, obviously the officials were in the favor of Minnesota on Tuesday night. So now this series goes back to Minnesota on Thursday. And I think the T Wolves gain some momentum. I think they probably win on Thursday. And then we get a very interesting game 6 on Saturday, which when we come back on Tuesday, Jalen Sandvik will be in this chair. As a reminder, he will preview the NBA Finals and whatever else is going on in the sports world at that point. I will be back here on Thursday to get my end of take on that end of the Mavs T-Wolves series, as well as the NBA Finals, and again, as well as anything else in the sports world. Um, but I suggest that this series, I predict it will be over in 6 now. I think Dallas will take care of Minnesota. Until somebody comes back from a 3-0 deficit, I'm not going to pick them to do so. I do realize there are certain signs there, including the fact that Minnesota lost, game 2 and game 3 by a combined 4 points. They need to shoot better. I just don't think Karl-Anthony Towns, it was phenomenal last night with his key shot making. I don't think you're gonna get that for 3 more games that the Minnesota Timberwolves need to do, to come back and win the series. So, with that in mind, I still have a Mavs, Celtics finals, and I would give the edge early here. I will to the Boston Celtics who, my partner Josh Unger last night on Championship Rings made a good point, maybe about Dallas being more deeper with their bench. But I think Boston, again, I think the veteranness of Drew Holiday, Derek White, Al Horford, Peyton Pritchard, Kristaps Porzingis, I think those guys will help Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown finally break through. Again, this does feel like the Celtics' year to win the NBA title for the first time since 2008 and to crown this dynamic duo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to finally break through. We know the breaks they've gotten. Jimmy Butler, Jared Allen, Donovan Mitchell, Tyrese Halliburton. This will be their toughest test to date. What I worry about from the Dallas perspective is, do they have the wings to stop Tatum and Brown? And I don't think so. I think this is going to be a lot like this series against Minnesota, a very Luka and Kyrie heavy team. And I think that Derek Lively or PJ Washington is going to have to produce every single night more points than what they have been to give Dallas a chance. And I don't think it's sustainable. With that being said, I do think that what we've seen in these NBA playoffs and what we saw, even in the Minnesota Dallas series is Luka and Kyrie, Tatum and Brown will give you about the same production on both sides. The question's going to come down to those role players. And right now, with the Celtics having home court advantage and the Celtics being more rested, I give the advantage to Boston. And I do think we will have the first NBA Finals Game 7 since Kyrie Irving hit the shot in 2016. I think the NBA wants it. I think the NBA needs it because even though we've had 3 Game 7s these playoffs, Orlando, Cleveland, nobody outside of those two cities really cared. Indiana and the Knicks was over from jump, and the Knicks had half their people out. The only real Game 7 it felt like we had from an NBA national standpoint was Minnesota and Denver, which was obviously a great game. But I think for the league, because of the fact that, Dallas, Minnesota may go 5 or 6, because of the fact that Boston swept Indiana, the league needs a competitive, long series for the finals. And I think that's what we do get. Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.